the results that they desired and probably required. We come to an era of robotic surgery in an era of revolution, where we look forward to how to take this to each and every patient in this resource-strapped country, which will work up in the next few minutes. To me, I don't have any disclosures to make. I am a robotic surgeon too. I love doing remote controls, though I sit on the body and operate too. Remote controlling an audience while doing a piano, or controlling the console, which actually helps me not to tire and operate from anything between 4 hours to 12 hours, sometimes on the prolonged complex surgeries. I look forward to India shining, not being resource and cash strapped like unfortunately here in India. So when we look at robotic surgery, we're looking forward to giving patients their best, at the same time probably doing the best. And that's what Hippocratic Oath is all about. We look forward to the Hippocratic Oath being in the mind all the time, right from the outpatient department to the surgeries and follow-ups. We also look at experience, evidence, and expectations of the patient. In a modern urology or a modern surgical setup, the expectation of the patient is amazingly changing. We need to wake up to that in a new internet era, a revolution which probably we cannot forget in our lifetimes. Other than internet and robotic, I don't see the third revolution which actually has hit me so hard, other than these two. So if I look at these two, I look forward to probably explaining to you that in minimally invasive surgery, from laparoscopy to robot, probably after 1st of April, I look forward to hearing from patients and from everybody that cash-strapped, resource-strapped country is no more. They love the urologists because we give them the minimally invasive surgery they deserve, with results and cure that they look forward to. 10 years ago, India woke up to these headlines in the Journal of Urology, talking about India is not ready yet. I would actually accept that because we all were preparing ourselves and we're working hard on that. But developing world also has got all other therapies which we get to. Target therapies, checkpoint inhibitors, medical advancement of all kinds. Then why not robot? Why not robot, please? The reasons which are quoted to all of us are same which can be done by other approaches like open or laparoscopy. They are much cheaper, so why go ahead with an expensive therapy which actually would not give you the mileage the patient deserves? The second reason is not trained manpower. I don't believe that. So why robot? Why does this minimally invasive surgery has no advantage? Advantages are amazing. Look at the laparoscopy here. Ever since the reduced mobility of laparoscopic cholecystectomy came into the picture, minimally invasive surgery has never looked back. We only looked forward. We never went back. Impact of the minimally invasive surgery was so overwhelming that nobody even has thought of doing an RCT to compare lap to open cholecystectomy. It was just overwhelming completely. They never compared these two. However, difficult ergonomics of laparoscopy kept it still away and away from those complex procedures that many of you and we do for those patients who deserve that treatment. So if I look at that, why robot? Robot was originally designed to actually take us forward beyond laparoscopy. So let's not correlate laparoscopy as a minimally invasive surgical procedure with robotic. What a robotic can do, possibly the laparoscopy could do, but then what happens to a surgeon, patient results is going to be in the next few minutes around. So it did offer advantages of from 6 to 7 degrees of freedom with those wrist movements which make life easy. We can turn around ourselves all angles. 3-dimensional magnified vision that gives you the depth millimeter by millimeter when you operate. The surgeon is not fatigued. He can actually walk in few times, and then a surgery which can anything last between 4 to 12 hours. There's a motion scaling and tremor filtration which allows everything to be happening good. So orbital push in my subject, the prostate, happened long back, 2001, 17 years ago. And like laparoscopic cholecystectomy, which again came as an innovation, it not only proved to be a game changer, but also altered the rules of the game forever in minimally invasive surgery. What did it do? Even in the absence of any level 1 evidence in United States of America, 95% of prostatectomies, the robotic radical ones, actually were being in 2015 were being done robotically. So the amount of assistance that the patient, the surgery, the results, everything is getting, I think we are still in early days. We are 17, 18 years compared to the laparoscopy which came much earlier. So was this enthusiasm for the robotic assisted radical prostatectomy without a reason? I don't think so. And when they looked at a comparison between open prostatectomy and robotic prostatectomy in the Lancet study, they found that at the early days, in 12 weeks, the urinary function, the sexual function were close to similar. There was not much difference in the positive surgical margins either. Because open had actually been the gold standard and stayed for those 100 years. But trend towards lower post-operative complications is what we all aim for our patients. Intraoperative adverse events with robotic surgery has minimized the whole gamut of understanding in the Lancet study. So robotic surgery grew rapidly in comparison to laparoscopy because of that one thing called the learning curve. I never did laparoscopy in my life. I converted from an open to a robotic surgeon. Obviously, I was always an endourologist doing urology. So an open surgeon with no experience of laparoscopy, like me standing in front of you, can transfer his skills to robotic platform in a short number of cases. compared to a laparoscopy surgeon who has actually trained so deep into the forest, to untrain and undo sometimes take longer, compared to naive people who may take probably close to 100 cases around. So the outcomes and the support of the shift which happens in various kinds of complex surgery, one of them is nephron sparing surgery, that you and I call as partial nephrectomy. We do for colon nephrectomies and mid-colon nephrectomies. The nephrectomies which we'll end up doing, where we go close to the margin, save as much nephrons as we can, has actually gone to show that the warm ischemia time, the suturing time when the vessels are clamped and unclamped, is much lesser than the laparoscopy era altogether. The cancer survival rates in minimal invasive surgery on those low grade and early tumors is great. The most difficult surgery in urology is radical cystectomy, the most difficult surgery rated around. If that surgery probably could be done with so much of ease for the surgeon and the patient, and get results in the era that has just started in the last 8 to 9 years, I personally think that both randomized and non-randomized studies have proven it, that it's time which has come that we are very close to what laparoscopy and what open was offering in this. So it's a new gold standard which is actually coming very close. I mean, the amount of meta-analysis on randomized controlled trials show improved results away the time to return to normal diet, which is something which a patient does not get. Our patient in the ICU is still struggling. We did open surgery because of affordability. We come to penile cancer. When we do those open surgeries on the inguinal nodes, we have those nodes pouring around liquids and we have got necrosis. That probably does not happen. So biologically plausible
injuries, complications after robotic surgery, call 1-800, etc. for a free consult, and they're ready to sue the robotic surgeons. So therefore, you look at this. This again tells you that things can go wrong in the operation theater, and did happen in Paris while I was in Strasbourg operating, and the guy was doing a robotic surgery, hit the aorta, his head hit the console, he had a concussion, and before he could say anything and just shouted help, people pulled out the blood. They didn't realize that the forearms docked onto the patient and the patient bled to death. All that somebody had to do was know how to unscrew get onto the manual mode and open. It took them 45 minutes to reopen, undock the robot, and then the patient was dead by that time. So therefore, it's more expensive, it takes longer than usual, and not particularly brilliant. Yes, it's your robotic surgeon. And artificial intelligence isn't really doing much for the economy. That's not me. That's the Australian Register talking about it. So is Darwin see robotic surgery a revolution or a rip-off? It's a solution in search of a problem. So therefore, if you look at FDA recalled 4 of their instruments, which my opponent has been using in the United States, because it was a correction notice to all affected customers as in June 2017. And look at, these are some of the cases that were in court. Endometriosis surgery, hysterectomies, thyroid removal, and the others are not specified, all of them resulting in deaths to the patient, and these were some of them. So therefore, surgeons must complete the following steps. And this is the recommendation of whether it's PT or whether it is intuitive. Says, take 1 hour of online training, watch 2 robotics procedures online for 4
to see what it is. In 2018, we are there. We're still kite flying. We're still probably running on the road. So we're still doing minimally invasive surgery. For what is required to be done laparoscopically, the minimal surgeries, continue doing it. Why should there be a cuff erosion when you do a robotic? You possibly are not a great surgeon. You did not do them that many man hours of training before you do it. And who forgot that laparoscopy also was with pigs? They started not in human bodies. The experimentation was in those consoles, which are all dummies, or they go to pigs and remove the kidneys and various organs, they go back again to surgery. Why I'm talking about the urologists came late, but did very well, because they remove adrenals, they remove kidneys, they reconstruct kidneys and pelvis into pyeloplasty, they do ureterostomies, they do repairs of the bladder and augmentation cystoplasties, they probably remove the prostate, they do inguinal lymph node dissections. So more than what the gynecologists have done in that small gamut in the pelvis, a urologist has gone right from the diaphragm all the way to the genitourinary tract. So we think we have moved forward. We came late. I don't mind coming late. But when I come late, I come strong. I want to do that. So evolution is a jigsaw puzzle. I'm looking at implementing the right thing at the right point in time. So early implementation in this country is the truth of the matter. Robotic surgery is come to stay. You don't want it, that's fine. 9 more companies are employing. So it's shining India in every aspect. It will continue to shine. March 3rd, 2018. March 3rd, 2018. If you open up Economic Times, you will see it's cut above the rest. It talks about the results of it. It talks about what is the Indian surgical robotic market doing. It's not about the corporate hospital. It's about the need and the requirement for patients recovering in time. This is a gentleman, a gynecologist, who speaks loud and does more than me. He does in Bangalore. So he spoke loud about it. I called him to congratulate that a gynecologist of his stature spoke loud, moving from laparoscopy to robot and probably done well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. These are headlines of the past. Please don't go by newspapers. Go by evidence. If you look at creating a habit is not resistant, soon becomes a necessity. So we continue doing what we continue doing, we will get the results what we continue to do. We need to shake hands and move forward. And that is where it is. Mani Manan says India is ideally suited for robotic surgery. He is the father of robotic surgery too.
Thank you.
As surgeons are skilled and the patient volume is high. And then we talk about Menon, he talks about robot is already there in India. So what are you even talking about? It's already there, it is not going to become anywhere. I'm not going to move further. So the last slide is more thoughtful. Behind every, let's just go back. Behind every man is a woman. And behind every urologist standing here is a respected gynecologist. So I respect behind every minimally invasive surgery program, we need to know when to use this and when to use that. Thank you so much.
I don't need any slides, but well, just to remind you that you did not come out from like an immaculate conception. You came out from that very pelvis that you talk about being small, right? And all that pelvis comes many things, right? Half your compartment lies down in front of me, right? I've got the uterus and the vagina and the rectum, right, to take care of. And we can manage that with minimally invasive stage-stage laparoscopy. We don't need a
into reconstruction, but when I got a chance to do robot, I never pushed myself into robot. None of the corporate hospitals in the world push robot. Therefore, they don't ask a surgeon to do. It is a multidisciplinary game, like laparoscopy is done in the pelvis and in the abdomen by him and by the urologist and by general surgeon. It is used by many. The cardiothoracic surgeons don't use it. They probably use it as a hanger. But others use it probably. So as you use, probably you will be able to cut down the cost. What are we talking? We are attempting to cut down the cost. If you cut down the cost, you'll be happy doing it. You want to stand for 8 hours and do this, or sit down and do this for a while and be comfortable enough to go back home. First live and then the patients will live. It is very important that we do good to patients at the same time, look at safety, results, and no brouhaha about it. It will probably go. I don't think robot will stay forever. Nothing will stay forever. But at this point in time, evidence speaks that it's great enough.
It's open to the floor. Open to the floor. Any questions? So Mike there.
I have a simple question. There's a lot of, excellent presentation and everything. But to our urologist colleagues, what is, at the end of your entire presentation, I haven't understood what is the distinct advantage of the robo?
Okay.
What are you professing is the advantage? Taking more time, more cost, more risk, learning curve, everything. So what is exactly the advantage that you profess?
Good question. So we're not taking more time. This instrument needs to be docked. Like you have to put 4 pokes. A large instrument has to be docked in around. And then you look at, wish I could actually show you what is inside the console. You look at what you would actually open and look at. What are we doing? We actually tend to cut the cost of many more things in future. Have you heard about a study by Lancet where they talk about 360 days and 1080 days of a follow-up on very major surgeries? So we're not talking about using a laparoscopy for a gallbladder or doing a hysterectomy. We're talking about a complex procedure. Robot is not for everything, please. It is for resource-strapped country where there's no expertise. It obviously takes time. You don't want to rush through a surgery and probably do 5 surgeries in a day. I do only 2 a day at the max. That means my 14 hours over. I take a break and see OPDs. So it's not about anything in terms of cost, in terms of time, in terms of learning curve. The learning curves are much better. Please believe me that I never did laparoscopy. In other words, I probably would have learned laparoscopy and done a lot of undoing around. What anastomosis you do probably is like this compared to just playing with fingers. So you do much better. So the precision levels are no less than laparoscopy. We don't decry minimally invasive surgery, what came earlier than what came now. I don't stand here to say that in 2020, there's something new will not come. It will only be standing on the pillars of laparoscopy and robotic. So there are things happening around. You can see an omelette being created. Soon our hands will not be used. So the cost is something which is actually bothering us in India. The cost is not a bother out there because the insurance pays there. But we look at the result which comes out of it. I mean, if you look at somebody actually is having a loss of his suture line, then you blame a robot to it. If a patient dies because you cannot unmask or undock an instrument, then it's probably failure on the part of the team which actually has taken the instrument. I said robot does not operate, please. It's you who operates. It's you who use a laparoscope, you use a scalpel. You use a wrong scalpel, wrong place, you will injure something around. So it's all about suturing and repairing, I think.
Next question.
So you've been harping on the cost. In the armed forces, when we were researching on buying a robotic system, which ultimately came in 2015, this I'm talking 2010 and 12, it was repeatedly told to us that there's a virtual monopoly by the Intuitive Surgical and the Da Vinci generations. And we were told that in 2014, the IPRs and the patents will lapse, and that's when the Chinese and the Koreans will come in with cheaper machines. And in 2014, we learned that Intuitive has bought all those patents from them. So you're saying that 7 more companies are coming. We keep hearing this. And this company has a virtual monopoly.
No.
They train the present generation of robotic surgeons who then go around selling the machines.
That's fine. See, I mean, you cannot, money runs the whole world is fine. America is on pharma and industry money, that's fine. But they have not bought all the rights. The